Previously on Crime 101.
And there's the knife. Where did you get it?
If I tell you, will you let me go?
I'm tired of the softly. And you may have been hot stuff once, Kate, but you slipped with this one.
You okay? You look a bit flushed.
Totally fine.
I guess it will be the first one.
Is that right? You should have turned that off.
We were a bit flustered when you came in here.
He was filming. It's not long. I've emailed it to you. Police, move! Move!
Controversy continues as the trial of popular real estate agent Neil Fox is about to commence. Fox, widely regarded as a pillar of his community, has been charged with the cold-blooded murder of gym instructor Janine Jenker. After a series of police blunders, the media has been prohibited from reporting on an extensive list of key information about the case. Radio stations have been flooded with calls expressing anger at the police and pledging support for Mr. Fox. We cross now to our reporter on the scene where it all began.
It seems like only yesterday I stood here reporting on the violent stabbing death of Janine Jenker. Recalling, of course, the infamous false confession, it remains to be seen whether the prosecution can indeed convince the jury beyond reasonable doubt. Jury selection takes place tomorrow, and it may be the most important part of the trial, given the defendant's public profile.
Hi, Richard. Thanks so much for seeing us. I appreciate this is out of the norm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got no weapon and no motive. The media are all over this, so we've got a serious jury contamination issue. Plus, a lot of people like this guy. Why am I even here?
Richard, meet Detective Ray Barrett. Ray is QC Richard Gambaro.
Is he the one?
The one what?
This is not the first false confession in history.
But it is the most recent as far as the public are concerned.
Is everything all right, Richard?
Come on, Kate, I haven't had a drink in over 4.5 years. This is water. Smell it.
You're an original, Richard.
It's Peter, right? Even better than the drink bottles all the hipsters are using.
So, you're not just a pretty face. Look, you know the rules. A prosecution should not proceed if there's no reasonable prospect of conviction before a reasonable jury. You don't have enough to make this stick, and I think you know that.
Don't the rules also ask whether the public interest requires a prosecution?
What have you got for me?
A woman has come forward. She saw Neil Fox on the media as he was leaving the police station. He attacked her 2 years ago. She never reported it.
She never peeped a word about this till now.
She didn't tell anyone because she didn't think anyone would believe her.
I'm nearly retired, Kate, and I leave an undistinguished career. I had some reasonable years before, well, you know. My last case, does it have to be a murder trial?
Richard, this guy is a psychopath who deliberately killed a woman, returned to watch the aftermath and then implicated someone else in the murder. Seriously, I mean, he is why we have a legal system. If this doesn't go to trial, it says to him that he's smarter than everyone. Me, Ray, you, a guy like this, next time he won't get caught.
We're going to need a good jury. He fooled you, Kate, and you're no fool. The evidence will need to be there. Because if it's a personality competition, this guy might walk.
Yeah, but come on, he's a real estate agent.
Neil Fox, you stand charged that on or about the 20th day of March 2012, in the state of Queensland, you murdered Janine Jenker. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty, Your Honour.
Juror 15. Juror 32. Juror 5. Challenge. Juror 37. Challenge.
Did DPP forget to pay him or what? That's Miss Slick's third one. When's Richie going to challenge anyone?
Shh. Not everyone likes to challenge. Thinks it makes the jury suspicious that you're stacking the deck.
Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Juror 17. Juror 6. Juror 20.
Before proceeding, I must ask each of you whether you have already formed or expressed an opinion about the innocence or guilt of the defendant, Mr. Neil Fox. I must also ask you whether you have had any professional or personal dealings with Mr. Fox. If the answer to either of these questions is yes, please let me know before we commence.
Excuse me, Your Honour. I was once at a charity event attended by Mr. Fox.
Thank you for letting me know. Can I ask whether you had any interactions with Mr. Fox at this event?
No, Your Honour. I was at the Sausage Sizzle getting a second serve because they were free. I didn't actually see him there. I only heard that he was there. Do I still get to go home?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant, Mr. Neil Fox, has been charged with the crime of murder. The prosecution alleges that the defendant killed Ms. Janine Jenker and in doing so intended to cause her death, or at least serious harm. Your job as jurors is to decide whether the defendant, Mr. Neil Fox, is guilty or not guilty of the charge of murder. It is important that I tell you that a defendant in a criminal trial is presumed to be innocent, and the burden of proving his guilt is on the prosecution. The defense does not need to prove that the defendant is innocent. So, before you may return a verdict of guilty, the prosecution must satisfy you that the defendant is guilty of the charge in question and must satisfy you beyond reasonable doubt. You may have some doubts about the defendant's guilt, but if they do not seem to be reasonable doubts, then you can still convict him of murder. I must also instruct you to pay careful attention to the evidence and only the evidence that is presented in court. Anything else that you may hear or read is not evidence. You must ignore anything that you hear or read about the case outside of this courtroom.
Hey, this might sound kind of stupid, but what about like Facebook or that kind of thing?
That's a good question, young man. You may discuss the case amongst yourselves, but you must not discuss it with anyone else. You must also refrain from making any investigations of the defendant or the facts of the case on your own. It is inherently unjust for you to act on information which is not evidence and which the prosecution and the defense do not know you are acting on. If any of you experience a problem related to the trial, arrange to let me know via the bailiff. Finally, keep an open mind as the case progresses.
Shouldn't be too hard for them. Their minds are pretty vacant already.